Correct. Hello and welcome as we continue with our Houston County Political Forum tonight. I'm Frank Malloy with 13 WMAZ, along with April Bragg, President of the Robbins Regional Chamber. Robbins Regional Chamber is the one presenting these candidate forums. As we get to know the candidates, early voting is already underway. Election Day is June 9th. We're now presenting the two candidates for Houston County State Representative District 147. The incumbent is Heath Clark. The challenger is Miranda Britt. Miranda and Heath, thanks very much for taking time to be with us. We certainly appreciate it. The format is simple. There will be opening statements. You each will have 2 minutes for that. Then April will ask a series of questions. You both will respond to the questions, and then we'll finish up with 1 minute closing statements. So we will begin with our opening statements. We'll go in alphabetical order. That means Miranda, you will start. So Miranda Britt, opening statement, 2 minutes, please.
Thank you so much for hosting this forum, and thank you everybody that's watching safely at home. I am Miranda Britt, and I'm running for State Representative 147. I am a mother of 4 biological children. I also have custody of my cousin's son, which makes a total of 5 children. And then I recently was the manager of my family's small business. I am now currently in school working on my CMA. And I just want to take a few brief moments to address a recent flyer that was mailed out to all of the registered voters in the area. I just want to let everyone know that that flyer is false. I do believe in term limits, not only in Congress, but on every level of government. So I believe once you've reached 3 terms, we need someone new in office with new ideas. And thank you for everyone that has given me a call about it. I have answered every single message, every single phone call, because I believe we need to have an open communication with our representatives, and I will continue to take every single phone call, even once I am elected.
All right, opening statement. Heath Clark, you have 2 minutes.
All right. Well, first of all, I just want to thank you, Frank. Thank you, April, for both of your organizations and what you've done throughout this whole kind of saga that's been the last couple of months with the COVID-19. Both of your organizations have done a really good job about telling good stories, trying to keep people positive, bringing about real sense of community in our area. So I just want to thank y'all for that. My name is Heath Clark. I've served in the General Assembly. This is my just finished up, well, in the middle of my 6th session. Since we're still suspended, we're technically still in session right now. But you know, I ran back in 2014 and was elected. We went door to door. We knocked on doors, nearly 5,000 houses, and asked people to support us, kind of sold our vision on what we wanted to do. And I, you know, since getting elected, I've stood by that. The things that I asked the people when I asked them to vote for me originally, and what I have done in the legislature is exactly what I told them I would do. And I'm proud of that record. I'm proud of what we've done in Georgia. I've been the #1 state for business for 7 consecutive years. That means jobs. That means higher incomes, wages going up. We've fully funded education for the first time in the state's history for the last 2 years. We've given teachers pay raises. We have invested in trying to better people's lives. We have led the nation in criminal justice reform, and all these things we can hang our hat on and be proud about. And I'm asking for the continued support of the people of District 147 here in Houston County to continue to represent them and be their voice in Atlanta, and try to continue to improve the quality of life here in the state.
All right, thank you both. We will now begin the question and answer portion. April Bragg will ask the questions. Each candidate will have 1 minute to respond. First question, first response will go to Mr. Clark. April?
Mr. Clark, what do you think is the greatest challenge our state will face in the next couple of years, and how do you plan to address that challenge?
You know, I think the obvious answer right now is just the aftermath of the coronavirus, and how we're going to come out on the other side and be stronger. What are we going to do to address? Because, you know, the reality is we're looking at having to make some tough decisions in appropriations. We've already began those committee meetings virtually. Today we had one looking at different federal funding that's come down to the state, how that money has to be spent, if there's any flexibility with it, how much money. So that the next couple of years, and we just finished with Hurricane Michael. We had to have a special session last year to address some of that, some of those issues. And so with the Great Recession, Hurricane Michael, now coronavirus, how to properly appropriate the state's money to make sure that we can emerge on the other side of this economic disaster stronger, better, and in a better position to improve lives.
All right, same question. Ms. Britt, you have 1 minute to respond.
Kind of the same situation, definitely what's going on with COVID and how do we go about handling it afterwards. A big focus is going to be economics. I do know the governor wants to revise the budget. That does entail, and word is that the teachers won't be getting their raises this year. And I really hope that's not true, because our teachers are the forefront of our next generation. So on top of that, also with the COVID situation, I believe it's addressing the issues we have in our healthcare system. So we definitely need to focus on those, making sure our hospitals have what they need, and making sure our rural areas have hospitals and doctors that they can go to in cases of an emergency and with this COVID situation.
All right, second question. We'll get first response. And again, response 1 minute, please.
Ms. Britt, Georgia has received fairly equal amounts of criticism and praise for the state's response to COVID-19. How would you rate our state leadership's response to this unprecedented crisis?
Well, I will be honest, at first, when the governor was talking about reopening the state of Georgia, I was very worried about it because I listened to what President Trump said, and that was 14 days of decrease. When we decided to start opening up, we were only on day 7. But once our governor came out and explained why he decided to do it, and that he had already had a conversation with our president about it, I felt better. I do wish that our local officials and even our House representatives would have been a little bit more communicate with us on what's going on and why things are happening. And I also think it addresses situations that we have with asking hospitals certain questions as regards to race and age with COVID-19, and also what supplies they have.
All right, same question, Mr. Clark. You have 1 minute to respond.
It hasn't been easy. Nobody knows the future. I think Governor Kemp took some bold leadership when he looked at the data. He's tried to be data driven and not just emotionally driven on his policies here. When he did the shelter in place, he was criticized for not going far enough. And then when he lifted it, some of the same people were criticizing him for getting out too early. And so, when you look at it, it's a hard situation because people have spent 20, 30 years investing in a business and growing it, and that was being ripped away from them. And as a state representative, I was having phone calls from these business owners saying that their landlords are still charging them rent. What can I do? And I was trying to get them in touch with people to help them out. It's a hard situation, but I think Governor Kemp showed some bold leadership in getting our state out ahead and trying to open these businesses back up so that them and their employees could continue to earn their livelihoods.
All right, now move on to our third question from April. And Mr. Clark, you will respond first this time.
With the economic slowdown, how do you plan to keep taxes low, yet rebuild the emergency fund and keep a balanced budget?
I'm glad you brought up the emergency fund. We were in a different situation than most other states. We had about $3 billion in emergency funds accumulated over because of being fiscally responsible with the taxpayer money. In saying that, we used $100 million in this current year's budget. We made some adjustments in January and added that back in for the COVID response. But you know, it's going to come through being fiscally responsible. We have an emergency fund that we can use. A lot of states don't have that. One of the reasons why we've maintained a AAA bond rating is because we have a plethora of revenue streams. So when the economy gets going again, we have the revenue streams to come in to make sure that we can make ends meet and not have to raise taxes to do so. You know, I think studies have shown too that cutting taxes can raise revenues for states and, you know, bring jobs and investment into the state, which brings more tax revenue and a tax base. And so those are the kinds of things that we'll keep doing, find ways to grow the economy.
Same question about the economy. Ms. Britt, you have 1 minute to respond.
We definitely need to make sure we keep our rainy day fund and making sure we don't tap into it as much as we possibly can. So definitely re-looking at the budget now that we know what has gone on. I do understand that there will be hard cuts to make. But in the end, I think if we can open up our economy as fast as possible, we can start bringing in revenue and also partnering with the private industry to bring in more businesses here in Georgia, whether that's giving them tax cuts, tax credits. That's definitely something we need to look at, because if we're bringing more businesses here, more people get jobs, we can start getting more income tax money and bringing more people into the state who will then go out and buy products here, hopefully local Georgia products. So it'll help everyone out. But that is something that we'd have to look at.
All right, you're watching our House and County Political Forum sponsored by Robbins Regional Chamber. Right now we have our candidates for State Representative District 147, Heath Clark and Miranda Britt. Our next question, question number 4, Ms. Britt, you will have the first response this time, 1 minute.
With 9 military installations across the state, what are your plans to support and enhance the capabilities of those installations?
I have been in talks with a couple of people in regards to cutting out the income tax rate for our active military members. That is something I'm looking at in regards to how other states are doing those. That would also keep Georgia residents that are active military instead of them becoming residents in other states. So that is something I am looking at. I will be more than happy to visit with those military bases and the people that are generals there and talking with them about what they need and how I can assist them. Right now, I do not have access to our military base because I am not military or dependent. And with the COVID situation, it has been hard to get in contact with them. But I think having meetings and discussing what they need instead of guessing what they need is the proper way to handle it.
All right, same question. 1 minute for you.
Well, this question hit real close to my heart. I am the chairman of the House Defense and Veterans Affairs Committee. When I got elected, one of the first things I worked on was forming a study committee within the House to go around to those 9 different military installations and talk to them and see things that, from their perspective, what can we do to improve the quality of lives of your servicemen and bring some more missions for the men and women into the state here. So among those, I have a bill that I'm currently working on it's the military spousal licensure bill. So if they, one of the problems that they have coming to this state is getting to work, their spouses getting to work. And I'm wanting to cut that red tape so their spouses, if they have a professional license when they move here, can get to work immediately and not have to go through red tape to earn an income here in our state. Time ran out, but.
Thank you. We're pleased to have April Bragg, President of the Robbins Regional Chamber, asking our questions tonight. April, this next question, first response goes to Mr. Clark.
Very good. Rural areas across the state face healthcare challenges due to limited access to hospitals. What are some ways we can enhance healthcare options for those living in rural areas of our state?
Great question. And this is a real problem, a real issue, and we've started to address that in several ways. We've created programs with Mercer University and their Columbus campus to incentivize doctors to go work in the rural areas of our state. We've worked on high-speed internet access, getting access to rural parts of, to the internet to rural parts of the state, so that telehealth can be an option for them. We have created tax giving, like, programs where people can give. This was Lieutenant Governor Jeff Duncan's plan, that there a tax credit for donations to hospitals in rural areas, so that money goes into those hospitals with no strings attached, and that they can use it to address the specific needs in those areas. We've also, looked at ways to incentivize the not only the doctors, but other ways with here in Houston County, there are some nurses that they travel to people's houses to provide care to people.
All right. Same question on healthcare. Ms. Britt, you have 1 minute to reply.
This situation is very personal to me, because if you look at it, there are about 64 rural counties that don't even have OBGYNs. And this also contributes to the maternal mortality rate, which is definitely big on my platform. A lot of these people don't have access to healthcare because of income. A lot of these people are farmers. So we definitely need to help out and take a look at our Medicaid and Medicare system. We also need to look at nonprofit hospitals versus profitable hospitals, and how we help out certain hospitals and give them tax cuts. I do like what Mr. Clark said about traveling nurses. Now, with that being said, we also need more nurses in the state. So if we focus on schooling that specifically focuses on the trade, we could produce more of those nurses. Ran out of time.
We'll continue with our question and answers. This next question, first response will go to Ms. Britt.
What is your opinion on casino gambling revenue as a potential future solution for some of the financial strain caused by COVID-19?
I actually had a conversation about this with another government official. I personally am not a gambler, but I do believe we need to start looking outside of the box to bring more revenue into the state. So I am not opposed to casinos and gambling as long as it's not taken advantage of, as long as we are able to monitor the amount of money going in and going out. That would keep people here locally gambling instead of going to Biloxi or out of state. So I do believe that's something that we can look into. I do believe there will be regulations to those just to make sure that they are handled properly.
All right, question on casino gambling. Mr. Clark, you have 1 minute for your response.
All right. So this one's tricky. On the surface, it sounds like casino gambling brings revenue to the state. But studies have shown that it's not necessarily a moneymaker for states. And that's something you've got to look at with this issue, that there's other areas that get affected. Where do they put the casino? Does it go into Atlanta, where does there need to be economic development in Atlanta? And some of those places around where that casino has been proposed, they're against it because it kills their businesses and the economic development that's already happened. There's tertiary issues surrounding casinos that we've tried to address in this state already. I think what you might see is an incremental step, because the issue here is not gambling. Gambling's legal in Georgia. It's just that the state has a monopoly on gambling through the lottery. But one step you might see take place is potentially online gambling with sports betting and things like that. I think that there's been more support for that. And it's interesting because the major sports organizations in Georgia have been against casinos, but they tend to support sports gambling online.
We'll move on to our next question. Mr. Clark, you'll get first crack at this one with 1 minute to respond.
Mr. Clark, is now the time to expand Medicaid funding considering the economic impact of the COVID-19 crisis? Please explain your answer.
Well, last session, in Governor Kemp's first term, in the beginning of his first term, we did pass 2 Medicaid waivers that they worked on and customized specifically for Georgia to make sure that people up to 100% of the poverty line are covered with healthcare access. And we have actually, this session, I co-sponsored a piece of legislation that passed the House. It's in the Senate now, that would give mothers of newborn children 4 more months of coverage while they recover from the pregnancy, and those that critical period after the child's birth, up to 6 months, from 2 months to 6 months of coverage, to make sure that they get the care that they need to address some of the issues that we've had here in this state. And I was one of the co-sponsors on that. Look forward to working to get that through in June whenever we go back into session.
All right, the Medicaid funding question to Ms. Britt with 1 minute for your response.
I definitely think that we should, but we also have a bigger issue when it comes to not only Medicaid, but food stamps, WIC, especially here in Houston County. You have people that have put in applications or renewal applications, and they're waiting anywhere from 3, 6, 8 months just to get those benefits or even hear back from somebody. We have a major issue when it comes to getting those applications, getting them processed, and getting people the help that they need. A mother like myself should not have to take off work multiple times to go sit in an office for hours and not receive any help. And if you haven't been to a Medicaid office or a food stamp office and just sit there and watch what happens in these offices, I implore you to do that, because it's saddening that people can't get the assistance that they need.
All right, we have time for one more question, and Ms. Britt, you will get the first crack at this one with 1 minute for your response, please.
How has COVID-19 changed your perspective on Georgia's infrastructure priorities?
I think with the COVID situation, it has opened a lot of our eyes to different aspects, whether it's infrastructure, whether it's healthcare. This is something that has never happened, at least in my lifetime or probably your lifetime. So it has opened our eyes to a lot of different issues that we have, not only in Georgia, but in the United States as a whole. I do think that we need to invest more in all of these different areas and pay more attention to what's going on, not only around us, but within ourselves. And definitely bringing business to the state of Georgia is going to help us move forward from this COVID-19 situation. And I think it's really opened our eyes in a lot of different areas.
All right, Mr. Clark, you now have 1 minute to respond here for our final question.
1 minute, that's going to be tough. So our infrastructure in Georgia is pretty good, but I think one thing that became glaring, and we've started to try, when it's government, you might pass some policies this year, and it's not like you can just snap your fingers and all of a sudden it's fixed overnight. But the technology infrastructure in this state, with COVID-19, I think that brings up we need to start really looking at not just getting the access to rural Georgia, but also getting better quality, because that brings in jobs, the high-tech jobs that come in. That brings in so much other benefit to our state. But when the students got sent back home from universities and colleges in Georgia, and some of them struggle to have internet access at their house. So it's an educational issue, it's a healthcare issue, it's a business and economic development issue, and we need to start really addressing it at the state level. And we have started, but we need to continue to drive that point home to the technology infrastructure in this state.
All right, we've now come to the closing statement portion of this forum tonight. And we'll begin, Mr. Clark, we'll go in reverse order of opening statements. So Mr. Clark, you will go first with closing statements, and you have 1 minute.
Okay, thank you. I just want to thank everybody in Houston County for showing me support over the years and sending me to Atlanta to represent you and be your voice and your mouth in Atlanta and try. And I've worked hard to do that. I've worked hard to be reachable and responding to emails and phone calls and questions. And I'll continue to do that. I'll continue to be accessible and transparent. I try to post as many of my votes as possible on my Facebook page. And I'll continue to do that for you. I'll fight for you. I'll fight for Robins Air Force Base and the other military installations to get the pensions for those to be the tax cut to those that they're not taxed. Military spouses, when they come into this state and they have no choice in where they live, that they can get to work, that we can utilize our private sector in Houston County to grow and strengthen its technology private sector around Houston County that will also strengthen Robins Air Force Base.
And Ms. Britt, you'll finish us up with your 1 minute closing statement.
I just want to let everyone know that definitely transparency and communication within our community is very big and important to me. I will not only be your voice in Atlanta, but also the person that will listen to your issues and take them to heart. I am open to meetings, phone calls. If you want to give me a call, I definitely will get in contact with you. If you want to have a meeting with me, I am open to be your listening ear and make changes in the state. We have some major issues that are going on, not only in the state, but specifically here in Houston County. And whether it's something that or getting you to someone that can address your issues, that's what I'm here for. So right now is early voting. So make sure you go out and vote. And then the actual voting day is June 9th. And I hope to earn your vote. Thank you very much.
And thank you both, Miranda Britt, Heath Clark. Thanks very much for being with us. April and I'll be back in just a couple of minutes. We'll present to you State Senate District number 20. Larry Walker III, and Franklin Wetmore. Thank you for watching.